Hey guys, welcome to the newest segment of Auto Connect that is called the Juxtaposition. This is a segment whereby we bring two cars in the same category, around the same budget, but the value proposition is worlds apart. And on this Sunday's review, we have brought together two SUVs that are around the same budget, but what they offer is quite different. And I want to start this review by alluding to something. If you're an African, in the African culture, people who are not adventurers are not really liked. And even there is a saying that says, if you're used to sampling your mother's food, you'll only think that your mother is the best cook in the world. And that is because you have not tried to sample other foods from different cooks. And those SUVs that we have brought today, the one of them is the much celebrated Toyota Prado J150, and the other one is the epitome of luxury in that category, and that is the 2016 Land Rover Discovery 4. And I keep on telling you that Auto Connect is the only channel that will guarantee you an alluring motor vehicle experience. We are going to dissect these two cars and see which one is value for money. I'll be your host, Eric Okabi, Eric with a CK. You can follow me at a personal level on Facebook, X, Instagram, and also TikTok. Now, before we start, I want to thank Carplicity for lending us these two cars. Carplicity are along Kiambu Road, and if you want to speak to them, they have so many cars from commercial to luxury and even to economy cars. So you can talk to David. His number is in the description below. But first of all, I want us to start by describing these vehicles in a nutshell. Now, these are Toyota Prado J150. It's diesel, so it features the 1GD FTV engine. And these are 2020 model. The reason why we brought the 2020 model is because irrespective of whether it's a 2020 or a 2016, there isn't much of a change. And also these are TX variant, but it's the only one we could find at the moment. But we'll tell you the difference in trims and what they have to offer. But even if you were to buy this car as a 2016, now the 2016 ones will set you back around 7 million Kenya shillings, depending on the trim, variant, and also condition. Now, these are 2016 Disco 4, and this one you will have to spend around 6 million, so it is cheaper comparing it to the J150. But even if you were to buy the Disco 5, the Disco 4 is an all-time favorite to many because it still has the masculine characteristic. The Disco 5, well, I feel it, you know, the Disco has been boxy for a very long time, but with the Disco 5 we saw it become more curvy and look more like an Evoque. So to the Discovery purists, they felt that the Disco 5 is not it, and that's why the Disco 4 is still a top selling SUV in the Kenyan market space today. But it's surrounded by so many stories of people say it's unreliable and it's expensive to maintain. Ni gari imezungukiwa na story, and maybe that is why this guy over here, Abel Mutua, owns it. Well, the J150 has lived up to its legacy of reliability and getting the job done. However, the Prado purists are not mostly open to other models, but I believe there are better models, but we'll have to really see which one comes first in terms of what it has to offer and also the reliability aspect. Sometimes there are quotes about this car that are not serious, and maybe that is why some people who are not serious own the Prado, like this guy over here, this guy called Jugush. Anyway, let's get up close and candid. You know, normally they would say we save the best for last, but today on this episode, I want to start with the Disco 4 because this is where the juice is. Hii ni gari ya ule msee wa juice. Now, when it comes to the prima facie of the Disco 4, it's boxy and it's masculine, and it looks both, you know, it has that cocktail of being trendy, being conservative. It does not shout. People say it's called discovery because every day you discover a new problem. However, we are going to demystify that today, sababu hii gari imekuwa na story mingi sana za jaba, but I want us to get up close and candid with it. And before I pop up the hood and see what is under there, I would like to show you something. Well, if you're buying a Disco that is diesel, because we had some petrol variants, you will have this badge and it will read either TDV6 or SDV6. So what does TDV6 mean? So TDV6 basically means turbo diesel, turbo diesel V6 cylinder engine. But SDV6 means sequential diesel V6 cylinder engine. Yeah. So we do that again. TDV6 means it's a turbo diesel V6, and SDV6 means it's a sequential diesel V6. Now let's go back to what is under the hood. Now, if you're buying a Disco, the best option, or most of them, will come in diesel configuration. Under the hood of the Disco 4 is a 3-liter V6 turbo diesel engine, and this specific one is the AJD V6. Now, the AJD V6 is a family of engines, actually a family of V6 and V8 engines that were developed by Ford, and that is something that is very important to note. The other thing about the AJD V6 family of engines is that they employ what is called the clean sheet technology. Well, they employ the use of turbochargers and a common rail, so that's why they are quite silent. They are diesel engines, but the grunt is there, but it's not as noisy. And let's talk about the power figures that are produced by this engine, which is an SDV6. Now, from the Discovery 4, you will be getting around 258 horsepower and a whooping 600 Newton meters of torque. How is power transmitted to the wheels? One important thing to note about the Disco 4 is that it is a permanent 4-wheel drive. Just like the Toyota Prado, it's full-time 4-wheel drive. So at no point is it going to be in 2-wheel mode. The other thing is that the gearbox that they employed is an 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, and that sets it apart from the Prado as well, because you get more power and more gears from this particular vehicle. So you have heard about the engine, and also I want us to talk about the suspension, because again, this is an area that has had so much discussion. Now, it's a tall SUV, and it's very comfortable. In fact, when it comes to comfort, the comfort you get in a Disco 4 is almost unmatched. Why is this? Because it has, or it runs on full independent air suspension. The other thing to note about this vehicle is that now the air suspension has different modes, and you can actually control the clearance by playing around with the air suspension. There is also another thing about this vehicle that makes it safe, because it's a vehicle that is drenched in tech. So if you're driving this vehicle along a road and all of a sudden there is a corner and you try to steer and the vehicle detects that there is understeer, now the stability control in the Disco 4 kicks in and it will get the brakes for you. So it detects understeer, and if it detects that you're moving too fast in an understeer situation, the vehicle is going to employ the brakes for you. So it's a very clever SUV. And if you can follow me around, now the boxy design is it's quite something when you're looking at the Disco, because one thing, and this is why most guys will prefer this over the Disco 5, is that it has a timeless design. You get all these chromes and also the plastic padding to prevent bushes from scratching your nice paint job. The other thing I would like you guys to see is the rear. Now, the Disco 4 is ideal for towing trailers. Yeah, that is why it has this hook for the trailer right here. And also, the software in the car can actually control the trailer dynamics once a trailer is hitched. It also features a split tailgate and 3 rows of seats, meaning it's a 7-seater. And for ease of sliding luggage into the Disco 4, you can also open the lower part and easily slide that. For more boot space, you can fold up this 3rd row of seats. And I want us to check out the interior so that I tell you about 1 or 2, 3 things when it comes to tweaking this vehicle off-road. And to get a higher spec, you know, there is something, a correction we need to make. Now, if you look at most Discos, you will find the HSE badge. HSE does not mean house, because wase wengi nasikia wakisema Range Rover house, Disco house. No, HSE basically means high standard equipment. It's a trim level of the Disco or other vehicles in the Land Rover, Range Rover family. Now follow me inside, because this is where now the Disco ultimately wins. Now, inside the Disco 4, now this is where the fun really begins. From, you know, the material on the seats to the build quality on the dashboard, the conservative Land Rover, you know, design. And this is what keeps most guys who own Land Rover Discoveries, especially the Disco 4, they are nostalgic to this particular vehicle. Now, I want to talk about some few things. In terms of comfort, it beats the Prado hands down. In terms of interior space, again, it beats the Prado hands down. The other thing is that this one comes with a triple sunroof. Yes, one here for the passenger and driver. 2nd row of seats also has a sunroof, and the 3rd row of seats also has a sunroof. When you switch it on, this one does not have the traditional gear shifter. This dial pops out, and this is typical of Range Rover, Land Rover design. It's the small things that make the biggest of differences. Now, one interesting thing is, because of the power that you get from this car, the 254 horsepower and 600 newton meters of torque, the braking system from this car is actually borrowed from the Range Rover. So you have superior stopping power. And when it comes to the fun while driving, now this vehicle, I told you it has an 8-speed ZF automatic transmission, but it also features paddle shifts, and this is called the shift command. It has a shift command software that you can switch your driving to in case you want to have a little bit of fun when you're driving this car. The other thing, let's talk about this vehicle off-road. It features the terrain response system 1, because the Disco 5 features the terrain response system 2. But let's talk about the 1, because it's the one that is here. If you look at this panel, now this vehicle features 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 off-road modes. Now this one, and you know, some of these off-road modes will also control the height when you're talking about height control. But the button to control height control is this one. You can either increase clearance or decrease it. Also, you get the downhill assist. That is one thing. Then let's talk about the driving modes. The number 1, you have the normal mode. The second one, you have grass and gravel. Then you also have mud and ruts. You get sand, and you have rock crawl mode. So these are all modes that will be dependent on where you're driving this vehicle off-road, and this is what makes the Disco a very capable off-roader. Other off-road modes that are here, you can shift it to low range, and you can hear the locker's lock, and you can also, you know, shift it to high range. Now low range is for high torque application. And the other thing about this vehicle is that it has an electronically locking center differential. So when it comes to off-roading, it's not only capable, it's also drenched in tech. It has so many electronics that are working, computers that are working towards getting you off the challenging terrain. And the other thing is that the handbrake is quite unconventional. It's not as bulky as the one on the Prado, and again, it's not as small and as feeble as the electronic handbrake as well. You get a lot of room when it comes to the interior space. Now, the other interesting thing about the Disco, and it's a feature that is also available in some trims of the Prado, is that it has a cooling box. Yeah, so you can store your drinks here, and they'll be served chilled or cold. The other thing about driving this vehicle is that you don't have to get worried about corners. So you have the confidence to approach corners. And now off-road, it will not frighten you because it will keep you planted to the ground. And that is the beauty of the Land Rover technology in the Land Rover Discovery 4. Now, the Prado J150, this is a favorite to many Kenyans, and the Prado nameplate is celebrated all over, some parts of the world because it's not entirely sold as a Prado everywhere. So, one thing about the Prado J150, it has had several editions, and my favorite edition of the J150 is the Teardrop edition. But since these are 2020, we don't get the Teardrop edition. However, in fact, the last Teardrop editions were around 2017, yeah, thereabout. But anyway, it still does look the part. But one of the problem you encounter when you drive a J150 is that you look like a politician. Yeah, that's the unfortunate truth about it. But the J150 has had a very good credibility when it comes to reliability and also getting the work done. Let's allude to animals. There are two animals in the same family, a zebra and a donkey. Now, a donkey is domesticated, not the prettiest, but gets the work done. Now, the zebra is a very beautiful animal, but it does not work at home. And it can't get, it exists in the wild. So in terms of getting the job done, well, the zebra might not be very handy. It might not be very useful, but the donkey is a very useful animal. I'm not trying to call any of the cars a donkey or a zebra, but unaweza jijazia. But let's continue. Now, under the hood of the Prado J150 is an engine I love. But what about the other engine options before I talk about it? And this is a disclaimer. If you are buying a Prado, thou shall not buy a petrol Prado because it is lazy and thirsty. If you want to buy a Prado, just get the diesel one and get that punch of power and also some very good fuel economy. Now, under the hood of this one is the 1GD FTV. It's a 2.8 liter and it's in the new generation of Toyota global diesel engines, and that's why it's called the GD6. Tuko pamoja hadi hapo. Now, unlike the Discovery, this one is a 4-cylinder turbocharged. Yeah, it's a simple variable geometry turbo, unlike the Disco that has a twin sequential turbo setup. And fuel is delivered to the cylinders through a common rail. One thing, let's talk about the power levels or the power output when it comes to the GD engine. Well, it sounds good. It has a grant of power. In fact, it's more powerful compared to the older 1KD engines. And this is something I've talked about time and again. What are the differences between the 1KD and the 1GD that we have on this particular car? Now, the 1KD was belt driven. The 1GD is chain driven. The 1KD is a 3 liter. The 1GD is a 2.8 liter. There is also the question, can I get a 1KD engine in a modern Prado, in a modern J150? Because now we have shifted to the J250. And a surprise for you viewers of Auto Connect, very soon we are bringing the Prado J250, the newest on Auto Connect. Other cars that you should wait for on juxtaposing are the Land Cruiser 300 series, the Prado J250, and a few other surprises. We are getting them as they are launched. Now, let's continue talking about this particular engine. Now, the 1GD is known for efficiency. In fact, Toyota has employed something we call the S-Tech technology, and it utilizes thermal efficiency, giving this engine very good fuel economy. Now, unlike the Disco, I told you this one is an inline 4. The Disco features a V6. The transmission, how is power transmitted to the wheels? Just like the Disco 4, this one is a permanent or full-time 4-wheel drive vehicle, and power is transmitted to the wheels through a 6-speed automatic transmission. So the Disco has more gears because it has an 8-speed auto transmission. The Prado has just 6. And if you're buying, let's talk about the different trims of the Prado. This one is the basic most, the TX. You also get the TXL, you get the VX, you get the VXL. But the VX, the VXL are predominantly for the Kenyan and South African market. There are other top models for the Australian market, like the Kakadu. And one of these fine days, we are going to have one episode to talk about the Prado trim level. So different Prados give different engine setups, and also most of them will give you the 1GD or the 1KD, the diesel ones. But when it comes to the interior and suspension, different trims will give you different features. But now there is one thing I want to show you guys. You see this cap over here? Now these imported from Japan, so it's not a tropicalized unit. So it features AdBlue. Now this is where you put AdBlue. AdBlue is to reduce poisonous emissions, just to try and keep it simple. And also you get a DPF in this. With the VXL, you would not get any of those because the VXL is specifically made for the African terrain. This is a Euro 6, but the VXLs and the ones that are, even the TX and the TXLs that are sold for the Kenyan market are Euro 4. Let's talk about the suspension system on the Prado J150. Let's start with the standard. At the front, you will get double wishbone, but at the rear, it will be dependent on the spec you get of the J150, because if you're getting the VXL, the VX and the TZG, you're going to, or even the Kakadu, you're going to get air suspension at the back. But with these other trim levels, you're going to get a solid rear axle with coil springs. Now, with the air suspension at the back on the Prado, you know, height control is a beauty when it comes to the Disco, because you can control height control on all fours. But this one, you can only have height control at the rear. The other thing is the chassis. This one features a ladder frame chassis, and it has a body on frame design setup, just like the Disco. However, there is this notion that J150s are unstable. Well, if you drive this car like an nincompoop, it is going to treat you like a fool as well. So drive it like an idiot, it's going to treat you like an idiot. So because this vehicle is not designed for extreme cornering or cornering at high speeds, because it's a tall SUV, so the center of gravity is a bit higher. And let's get back to the center of gravity being a bit higher and having a ladder chassis and also a solid rear axle. What this facilitates is a longer suspension travel when you go off-road, and that is why the Prado becomes an indomitable machine when you take it off-road. But again, driver skill matters a lot, because if you drive this vehicle like somebody who has not driven off-road before, it will get stuck, just like the Disco. Only that the Disco now has more driver assist features. So the Disco might intervene on your idiotic driving, but the Prado will just pick up your command. Sawa. But modern Prados have other modes that can also intervene, like crawling modes, yeah? So they'll try and intervene when you're driving like somebody who has no idea about driving off-road. Let's check out the rear of the J150. And one thing about it is we cannot call it a split tailgate per se, because this can open. But if you want to open the entire tailgate, it also opens sideways. Now, it has a third row of seats, so it can carry 7. Not all Prados can carry 7. Some of them carry 5. But another interesting thing is that sometimes you find Prados that have a rear-mounted spare tire, and others like this one that have a spare tire that is mounted under the car. Now, why is this so? If you find a Prado that has a rear-mounted spare tire, it means that the tanks are bigger, the fuel tanks are bigger, and you'll get these rear-mounted spare tires on Prados that are meant for the African market. These are the VX, VXL, TX, TXL, but specifically for the African market, and also some Asian markets as well. But for Japan, you will get the one with the rear spare tire mounted at the bottom. And the reason for the African ones and the Australian ones and some of the Middle East ones having bigger fuel tanks is because of range. So they can give you a longer range. That is why unapata Prado zimeuzwa 0 mileage locals, ziko na spare tire pande ya nyuma, and you get the badge on the right hand side. Now this one is a TX, you can get a TXL, you can get a VX, you can get a VXL, TZG, or even the Kakadu. But I'm promising you guys that we are going to have an episode that is going to dissect all these trim levels of the Toyota Prado. When you come from the Disco, this feels like a proper downgrade. We have to be very honest. Now, the build quality is not as superior as that on the Disco 4. Well, this one has a very good, it has leather brown seats, and the beige interior is actually, I love beige interiors because they do look quite neat when they are clean. You also get a sunroof on this one. And it's quite rare to get a sunroof on a TX. So this is one thing that is quite impressive about this particular TX. Now, depending on the trim level. So this one does not have height control, but it has it has second start. What is second start in a Prado? Most people ask about these a lot, and most people do not even use second start in their Prado. So second start, if you're going up a slippery surface, sometimes if it would start with the first gear, which is the conventional gear that this vehicle by default would start with, it would get a lot of wheel spin. So if you want to reduce wheel spin, what you do is you engage second start, and the vehicle starts the climb with gear number 2. So basically that is second start, and second start will reduce the amount of wheel spin. Now, again, I told you these are full-time 4-wheel drive, but if you want to change between the 4-wheel modes, you have 4 high or 4 low. You also get a diff-lock downhill assist. However, some variants like the VXL have a variety of off-road driving modes, but when it comes to the Discovery, it has superior off-road technology compared to the Prado. However, the Prado is a bit more hardy because of the suspension system. In fact, when you're taking your Prado off-road, you don't have much to worry about in terms of damaging something. Well, again, other Prados will come with even like the VXLs, they are designed to tackle tough terrain. That's why they'll have more sophisticated 4-wheel drive systems. Now, if you want to change the range between 4 high and 4 low, you do that with the touch of a knob. So it's electronically controlled. Now, some Prados have a cooler box like the VXLs, but now this one does not have a cooler box, but it gets heated seats and cooled seats as well. But if you compare these two interiors, well, the Disco wins hands down, even in terms of spacing. The Disco is a superior car, and as I said, being in a Prado does feel like a downgrade, because you cannot compare the comfort feeling in the Prado and the comfort feeling in the Discovery. No, this one feels a little bit more, the Disco feels luxurious, this one feels tough. So that's the difference between those two cars. But in terms of features, the features, the technological features, some of these Prados come with very good features, like even RCTA, the rear cross traffic alert system, such when something is going across or it's crossing hapo nyuma ya gari, you get an alert. They get 360 degrees cameras, but this one does not have a 360 degree camera. Different trims will offer different features, but the Disco will always reign supreme because of what it has to offer vis-a-vis the cost implication of buying it. Now, if the Prado was cheaper compared to the Disco, then it would make a lot of sense. But now you're finding that the difference in price is quite significant, and that is... And I want to ask you guys a question. Is this the price we have to pay for reliability? Let's talk about value for money. So what will the Prado give you? The Prado will give you only one thing, actually two things. It will give you ease of maintenance, and it will also give you reliability, the aspect of reliability. Well, the Prado does not require a specialized technician to fix. That is one thing. But now when we move towards the Disco wins in several ways. One, the Discovery is more luxurious compared to the Prado. The Discovery has more technological advancement compared to the Prado. In fact, off-road technology for the Disco is actually epic, and this makes it a very, very capable off-roader. But one thing with the disco is that when something goes wrong, it goes terribly wrong. And when you weigh, do the pros outweigh the cons? Well, let's start by trying to demystify some of these things. Does air suspension break down in Land Rover Discovery 4s? Yes, it does. Is it as expensive to fix as people say? Well, yes and no. These days, discos are actually, they are more on Kenyan roads, and our technicians have researched more on them. Parts also, the world is becoming a global village. And if you are to import something for a Disco 4, you can do it through our friends who are called WACE Auto Spares Limited. And you see, these are the guys who would actually, if you need something, they can import it for you, in like 6 days. And if it's bulky, they'll bring it within 21 days. So you can own a Discovery 4 and not spend or not cost an arm and a leg to keep it on the road, because the world has become a global village and guys like WACE are actually importing. In fact, you can own any car without the fear of lacking spare parts. So, tuko pamoja hapo. So you can check out WACE, by the way, their number is down there, and they are importing some few things for us, so you can also watch subsequent videos to see what they are bringing for us, and try to see the process, because with importation sometimes it can get a little intricate, but WACE are making it look a bit easier and making it more convenient for us. Now back to the Disco. What about reliability? The Disco is not as unreliable as people perceive. In fact, they are known to clock some very high mileages as well. Now the setback with the Discovery 4 will be, it needs a specialized technician to fix it. It cannot be fixed by a roadside mechanics. In fact, for Land Rover Discoveries, there is one thing that the Land Rover specialist Mr. Ogada says, that Discovery ama Range Rover inaharibiwa na watu wawili, driver ama owner na mechanic. So with a Disco 4, you cannot afford to take any shortcuts. But one thing is imminent when it comes to these two cars. The Disco is a superior vehicle compared to the Toyota Prado. However, as Wakabi, I always have another saying that peace of mind is also a luxury. Only that you will have to pay more for peace of mind. But that does not mean that you cannot live with a Disco. Yes, you can live with this car. Imagine if you have around 6 million, you can get yourself a Discovery 4 from Carplicity. Yes, and it will give you all these, all these luxuries that you cannot find even in the highest trim level of the Toyota Prado. In fact, the Disco 4 will shame and embarrass most SUVs when it comes to off-road capabilities. So in my overview, yes, this Prado does score in terms of getting the job done, but having some add-ons, having some finer things in life, the ultimate vehicle will be the Land Rover Discovery 4. It's a blend between performance, fuel economy, and also to some extent reliability, and not forgetting driving thrill, because driving the Discovery 4 is, okay, I would not want to copy this from BMW, but it is sheer driving pleasure. I've been your host, and I hope that this review has been insightful. Eric Wakabi, Eric with a CK. You can follow me at a personal level on Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. And do not forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Again, as we wind up, thank you so much, Carplicity Motors, for giving us these cars. If you want to view luxury vehicles, economy vehicles, commercial vehicles from Carplicity, there is a number down there. Number ya David Carplicity. Alafu hapo chini ya namba ya David Carplicity kuna namba ya WACE Auto Parts, wenye wanaweza import spare parts za any vehicle and in record time. So save money on spares, import with WACE. And kama unataka pre-purchase inspection, as I always tell you guys, usinunue gari kama mbuzi. You can consult with us, you can reach out to us on the number and the email address iko hapo chini ya namba ya David Carplicity, WACE Auto Spares. Sasa hiyo ya tatu ni ya Auto Connect, na ukipiga hiyo namba utanipata mimi mwenyewe. So guess what? Next week we have a surprise for you, and also this coming week we have more content than usual, because there are a few things that we want to show you. So keep So stay tuned to Auto Connect. Over and out, and be safe. Take care. See you next week.